Emmeline. I am the founder of Voices of Water Foundation, and we are based in Cornwall, specifically around the Helford River Slope. And we are all about weaving rights of nature movements with community guardianship to give voice to living riverscapes. And we're starting our work as a charity specifically around the Helford River. And yeah, I'm here today talking about rights of nature movements as a whole, what we're planning in the organisation, and acts of community guardianship and how people can get involved.
So yeah, I'd just like to introduce Emmeline. Voices, I guess in Voices. Oh, it's for water, isn't it?
Voices of Water.
Water. Voices of Water. Emmeline's very kindly just offered to share some of what she's doing at the moment, which I find really inspiring, and hopefully you all will too. So yeah, thank you, Emmeline, for agreeing to do this.
Well, thank you for inviting me. Well, it's lovely to see you all and meet you all. So yeah, we're just going to kind of flow with it. So yes, I'm Emmeline. I am the founder of an organisation called Voices of Water Foundation, and we focus a lot of our work by Helford River and within the Helford Riverscape, as we like to call it, because it's all about connection. My background's actually in marine biology, so I studied to be a marine scientist, and I'm also a filmmaker and a writer, so we kind of weave all this within the organisation as well. So what we are at, we call Voices of Water VOW for short. We exist to give voice to living riverscapes, really. So we love to weave rights of nature movements with community guardianship. I just recognised you. I've not seen you in ages, nice to see you. So we exist to give voice to living riverscapes, and we weave guardianship, community guardianship and rights of nature movements. And we actually only founded the organisation in January last year, so we're in our very early stages, but our first mission was a pilgrimage, and I'll get to that in a moment. But what kind of sparked all this and sparked the forming of the organisation comes from the power of words. Now, what I mean by that is around 5 years ago, I was nearing the end of my Masters in Marine Biology, and I was planning to go and do research in marine science, but I've always loved being by the river as well, and by all trees, just in connection with nature as a whole. And I just started looking into, I think it was around 5 years ago, when a lot of the issues with river environments now were starting to really come out, especially around the sewage issues and things like that. So I sat by the river and I just had this question, which was, where did it all go wrong? And I meant that in so many ways, not just for the pollution issues, but disconnect in many ways with these environments. And from that, my second question was, how do we change the story? And there's this quote by Satish Kumar, who is just an amazing human being. If you've heard about him, he walked 8,000 miles, and he's written so many really cool books, so you should check them out. But there's this quote that's, if you want to change the world, you have to change the story. And I love that quote. And it did really spark this kind of second question. And from that moment, I just thought, I really want to look into this. Where did it all go wrong? And how do we change the story? So instead of going into the marine science research job I had just studied almost 5 years for, I decided to look into this question. I went back into part-time work and waitressing and things like that, and started researching. And one of my first investigations was going to some archives, looking at the old kind of Environment Agency reports and different things like that. And then from that I started looking into environmental law. And when I found, or when I personally learnt about rivers, nature overall in the UK, legally being classed as an object in the paperwork, I thought, well, that doesn't make any sense. And that really started to spark this kind of quest around the power of words and how do you change the story. I mean, when you change the story, you really start with the words in many ways. So I thought, well, if nature's objectified, then that's already going to be sparking disconnect in many ways. And from looking into that, you know, it provides more doorways for misuse. All stemming from how it's being written about instead of being a life force, seemingly life force. So from that led to forming Voices of Water Foundation, and we're all about connection. So the wonderful trustees of VOW are, we've got the founder of Plant One, who you might have heard about. They've got a wonderful campaign called No Trees, No Seas that's just launched, with some amazing research backed up by forest ecologist Sam Manning, who is looking into flowscape and how everything's interconnected. And then we have trustees from the founders of Clean Ocean Sailing, and then trustee Kirsty Edwards, who is the ex-mayor of Falmouth. And in my mind it was about connecting everyone, you know, because I thought if you want to try and be a part in changing the story, then we need to connect all the dots. And from that sparked our first mission, which was to try and be a part in now what is a really big growing movement in the UK for rights of nature, specifically around rights of rivers, to try and be a part of getting the more awareness out about that and getting the government to start talking about this. So I decided to launch a petition, and it ended up being the first of its kind national petition that got accepted to be launched. Because I don't know if any of you have ever launched a governmental or parliament petition. When you launch them, they have to have like a 10-day assessment period by the parliament to even be allowed to be posted publicly. So the first one we launched ended up getting declined. So we tried again and launched a second one, and with it, the petition was calling the UK government, starting in England, to really start this discussion about granting legal recognition to river environments, particularly to see them as beings legally. You might have heard legal personhood for rivers, which has happened elsewhere in the world, the first place being in New Zealand. We now actually have legal personhood for stingless bees in the Amazon, which is pretty cool. That's the most recent global legal change. And there's a lagoon in Spain that has legal personhood. In legal terms, legal personhood really just means legal recognition. I do struggle with the word personhood even, because again, in my mind it's this legal entity, but that's another one. That'll probably require a whole other petition, I think, sometimes. Yeah, legal recognition. And we launched this petition, and I decided to embark on a pilgrimage to build a campaign around this and start building a community and building more the awareness of the charity and trying to see how more people to get involved. So I decided to do this pilgrimage around river pathways, following different rivers throughout the UK. So I set off, of course, from the Helford River in Cornwall, and I ended up, this was in June last year, I set off on the 28th of June, I think it was, and I walked from the Helford River all the way to Wales. I went along coastal paths as well, so I diverted a bit, and I also really wanted to go to Stonehenge, so I ended up like diverting, going inland, then going to Stonehenge, then coming back, and to Wales, and all the way up to the Brecon Beacons, and then from the Brecon Beacons down, following the Welsh coast path, back to and across England. I wasn't meant to walk so long. It ended up being an over 1,000-mile pilgrimage, but the petition got majorly delayed, even though it was only meant to be a 10-day monitoring period. So it ended up being, I think it was like a month into the walk, and the petition still wasn't out. So that's why I decided to keep walking longer. And finally it got launched, and I met so many wonderful people along the way. And the reason I'm talking about the pilgrimage is really to kind of delve into, this isn't just a journey about water, nature connection overall, this is a journey about human connection in changing our story. And I really think that there is this, it's not that this is all something that's new, this is just a remembering, this is just a reawakening. And I really feel like that's happening. I feel like the story in many ways is already starting to change. So I met so many wonderful rivers along the way. I walked along areas of the River Tamar, the Otter, the River Neath, and then I followed the whole of the River Thames from source to sill. That was a huge contrast, because I spent so much space in the wilderness, and then suddenly I was like walking into a city. But I ended up meeting so many wonderful people along the way, and that really started to just like, reawakening that this isn't just a journey about nature connection, it's just human connection. But also one of the main things that really like stayed in my mind, and I suppose made the journey of this movement feel even stronger, is that every single morning, because I camped largely the whole way, every single morning the first thing on my mind was, I need to get some water. Where do I find water today? And I just, like, that was the most important thing. And I just feel like there's so much power in words, there's so much power in perspective. And I really think, I just think that all those in power, they just all need to go on a pilgrimage. Because I just think it just opens up a whole other world. When you are put into a position where all you're carrying is what you need. And all you need to find and make sure you have on you is water. Yeah. It shifts what's actually important. And I think the power in perspective before anything is how we're going to change the story. Because even like when we have a cup of coffee in the morning, like that's already that there's a connection there. Like just the ability to just go and have a cup of coffee, like that's from the fact that we're all connected to this like amazing world. And I do think there's so much power in just the whimsy of everything. I sound like a tree-hugging hippie, and that's what I actually am. But I don't think, that's not, I suppose the word hippie is always been spoken about in bad ways in many ways, and no, it's just about reconnection. And yes, and I do believe that there's good to be found in most people. But I'm also not naive, and I know there's a lot of layers to it. But it's just about that question, like how do we change the story? So we are now that I'm back, so I ended up returning on the 5th of October. So yeah, I left on the 28th of June, returned on the 5th of October. And it was so wonderful to see the seasons change as well. I really loved that. Yeah, it was just to see the leaves changing and things like that. I saw so many. I had a lot of wonderful wildlife encounters as well. I actually saw an otter on the River Thames. I didn't think it would be the River Thames that I saw the otter, but that was really cool. I saw so many kingfishers. There was a little baby fox cub that put his head under my tent, like just stuck his head to my tent like in the early morning. That was really cool. So yeah, just kind of that immersion just in the wild space has just sparked so many more things. So then when I returned, it was actually really weird to return after walking so long and also having so much time alone. We had to get straight back into trying to look at getting the charity funded. So it was like returned, it was like straight into grant applications and things like that, which was just weird, and I think I felt like I was floating still for a little while. But now I feel like I've landed. It's taken quite a few months. The petition ended up gathering half the amount of signatures that it needed to get a response from Parliament. I did get an email saying that they did actually end up having a discussion about it in Parliament as well. So it started something, which is really good. And from that, it's put us in the charity in connection with some wonderful people in the rights of nature space. Now, some barristers, like there's a wonderful lady called Monica Ferrier-Tinter. You might have heard of her book, A Barrister for the Earth. She has done so many wonderful things for rights of nature globally, representing a lagoon in Spain and things like that. So I've been in contact with her, and we are now in the early stages of developing some research to look at how a rights of nature approach could take place around the Helford riverscape. And it's really key to say riverscape in my mind, not just the river, because I really do think this approach needs to work in connection, and there also needs to be a whole section in this research which we could go a quick way and try and do like a charter or something, but I'm personally hesitant to do that because I want to delve deeper into actually how can a policy around rights of nature look around the riverscape, the Helford, and in connection with everyone that's connected with that. So, like the fishermen, the farmers, the local communities, businesses. There's so many governing bodies to this. There's a lot to want to talk about. So the plan is for this research to become like a 4-year research study that leads to developing how this could look around the riverscape. And in connection with that, we started to form a wonderful guardianship community in the charity. So that the website's just been updated, voicesofwaterfoundation.org. You can check it out, and there's a model on there that we're calling the guardianship model around the Helford, like how we envision this to look. And within that, we've incorporated elements of obviously the core being rights of the riverscape work, but then from that you have the science and restoration, the creative focus, and the spiritual focus, and that all being in connection. I don't like guardianship, rights of nature guardianship specifically stems from like where this first. It's an indigenous perspective. It's nothing new. It's just an innate knowing. So we really want to try and see how that can work and look around the Helford. So we've got wonderful people like Tanya and Ilya who are going to be doing like a guardianship creative based events and workshops around the Helford, and then we have spirit guardians that are going to be exploring like sound therapy, water sound therapy and healing, and Elford and I've got some wonderful supervisors now that are helping me with this research that we're developing, including Sam Manning from looking at all his like landscape researching marine biologists and tropical ecologists as well. Again, that's just innately connection has happened that way with the scientists that have come on board. It's like we've got marine biologists, tropical ecologists, forest ecologists, so it's like all connection. So you can go and check that out, and yeah, I just think, again, returning back to kind of the root of where all this started was the power of words, and we all have that power in changing the story with the words that we speak before anything. I really do. Like I saw a talk where someone said words are like spells. That's why it's called spelling, and it is true. Because if what you're putting out there, it's all energy, isn't it? So what's been happening in the tent today with the poetry, it's all so powerful, and I think that is how we can start to change the story. With that said, thank you for listening, everyone.
Thank you, Emmeline. Yeah, do you
I was just thinking there's that wonderful book, it's in here, the Robert Leclerc.
Yeah, yeah. So I actually, one of the people I met on the pilgrimage is, he's got a really cool name, Hendrikus. He works with Robert Macfarlane. So they're doing some work together, I believe, in Wales, because he's also like a part of wonderful like community wildlife groups, and also that are in connection with getting young people out into like nature and in schools and things. So Hendrikus came and met me, and we were speaking about like the mission and everything, and how they could like how we could like connect in the future and things. So yeah, it's happening. And his book, I listened to his book a lot on the pilgrimage, so like I had kind of audio books going as I was walking, and his was one of them. So, and he talks about a lot of the cases where rights in nature has happened globally, and it's really interesting. So if you haven't read it, I definitely recommend. And yeah, it's like the movement's growing in the UK so much now. You know, there's so many charters coming out for rivers in particular. But there's still no legally binding changes yet. So this is what we're really wanting to explore in the foundation, which I just think it would take a few years, because there's just so much to incorporate in a legally binding change. That's why we're going to take a research approach first.
In the round for that's great. Emmeline, was it simply voicesofwater.org?
Voices of Water Foundation.
All time this something. Thank you.
I mean, what you're saying, this makes us sense, because, like you were saying, this is not anything new. It's like thousands and thousands of years of wisdom tradition about water, sacred springs, dryads, and it's built into myth and legend and culture, the importance of water. And well, of course it is. Without water, the whole planet turns into Mars, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And even Mars might collect water. So it kind of reconnects with inner knowing, isn't it?
Yeah. I just love looking. Like I know everything's so complicated, right? And I love looking at trying to simplify things. And I think if right at the core the words aren't right, then that's like something that you can act as a stepping stone. Because that's one of the things that kept coming through on the pilgrimage, of it's really not meant to be this complicated. But yeah,
there's just so many things that make it complicated. So
Yeah, and I think that's why it worked in New Zealand, and they had that. It was in 2017 where they had that first legally binding change for the river there that recognises the river as an entity. That was really led through the indigenous tribes there, and it was a really unique collaboration. I think the first of its kind, where the Maori tribes teamed with the government there to bring about this legally binding change. And with what you were just saying then, like that there is so much ancient knowledge here on these lands that's reawakening, that has always been there. And I'm really keen to explore how that can weave throughout this approach, because I think that's a key thing to leading it.
Because there's like a health and conservation research.
Yes.
They've been going for years, and they've had some very interesting talks about how the seagrass is regenerating and the kelp vegetation. And that's absolutely marvellous, but you're coming at it from a slightly different perspective, with the spiritual aspect and the interconnectedness of everything, which of course is a fundamental feature of modern quantum physics. Well, not just physics, but that everything is connected. And the web of life and all these sort of things. That there's a movement, I don't know, which connects in with what you're saying, called ecocide.
Yes, so Jojo Meta, so Polly Higgins founded Ecocide, and she was a lawyer. She sadly passed in 2019, but she was, so I've spoken to her partner, the co-founder of the Ecocide campaign, Jojo Meta, and I was really excited when I spoke to her, because she's someone I've been like, her and Polly Higgins are someone I'd love, and she spoke to me on Zoom, and I was really keen to explore how legal recognition or rights of nature, recognising like a riverscape as an entity, pairs with ecocide, which is trying to add like a legal change, like in the Rome statute, where it's considered ecocide to harm the environment. And I was like, how do the two pair? And she said they actually come hand in hand really well. So you have the ecocide there to say this is a criminal offence to harm the environment, and then you have the legal personhood or legal rights of nature recognition that says the environment is alive and the environment is an entity. So they actually need to come hand in hand. So she's someone I'm speaking to, and I want to keep speaking to her. If we can get our research funded, there's a whole section to it where I want to be incorporating people like her.
It's really exciting, as you say, because it's beginning to gain some ground at last. You can't just like wrecking the Y and all the rest of it. It's just not on. I mean, it affects everybody, doesn't it? Not just your own area, but it has so many knock-on effects.
Thank you again, Emmeline. And Emmeline is around for the rest of the day. Then, if you're open to chats and talking about,
and it's fantastic. And we can change people, and that's about, you keep saying about changing the story.
Yeah, that's why I love Satish's quote so much, because I do think it
absolutely
it does, again, it simplifies things on everything that's so complicated. It's just about changing the story, and I actually met Satish and interviewed him for some filming that I'm doing, and he said, I love everyone I interview, I ask them that same question: where do you think it all went wrong, and how do we change the story? And he was talking about, like, he said so many cool things that he said, but one of the key things was like governments. He said governments follow the consciousness of humanity, And I loved that, because I was like, yeah, if more and more people start questioning things and changing the story, then they have to start following that. And I thought that was a really cool thing.
Yes, no, this is good. My stomach is rumbling, telling me that it is actually lunchtime.